Matthew 24, verse 6. And ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that ye be not troubled. All these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. And there shall be famines, and pestilences, and earthquakes in diverse places. All these are the beginning of sorrows. In the news, RT, U.S. eyes direct war, Russia, Belarus. The U.S. wants to launch attacks from Poland and the Baltic states, military intelligence chief claimed. The U.S. is making plans for a direct war against Russia and its ally, Belarus. The head of Belarusian military intelligence warned on Thursday. The scenario is becoming more likely as the proxy war in Ukraine and other ways to hurt the two nations are failing, he claimed. The territory of Poland, as well as the Baltic states, is being turned into a staging ground from which the U.S. plans to unleash a new bloody conflict in Europe, targeting the Russian Federation and its allies. Major General Ruslan Kosyygin said. He cited NATO training troops for rapid deployment in Eastern Europe and the development of anti-ballistic missile systems in the region as evidence of the looming crisis. Further proof, he claimed, is the dangerous attempts by some Polish politicians to initiate a return of so-called historically Polish regions in western Ukraine and Belarus. The general said his agency believed that Western nations were preparing for an attack against Belarus and Russia under the guise of deterring Russia from launching an invasion, which is how NATO justifies its military buildup in eastern Ukraine. Belarus does not favor the scenario of a war, but will act decisively if it comes true, because Yegin said. And so NATO is nothing more than a proxy for the U.S. He said an escalation was becoming increasingly possible because the West is coming to the realization that traditional methods of hybrid aggression against Russia and Belarus are not producing the results it wants. Direct confrontation with Poland and Baltic nations, if it starts, will be similar to the hostilities in Ukraine in terms of principal origin. Kosyygin said, Ukraine was deliberately pumped with weapons since 2014. It was trained to fight and fight particularly against the Russians, he said. Unfortunately, similar anti-Russian and lately anti-Belarusian sentiments have been injected in the same way into the minds of people of Poland and the Baltic states, he added. Russia sent troops into Ukraine on February 24th, citing Kyiv's failure to implement the Minsk agreements designed to give the regions of Donetsk and Lugansk special status within the Ukrainian state. The protocols broken by Germany, and France were first signed in 2014. Former Ukrainian President Petro Poroshenko has since admitted that Kyiv's main goal was to use the ceasefire to buy time and create powerful armed forces. So basically, the U.S. has been building up their military forces at the doorstep of Russia because they're getting ready to prepare for war with Russia. Okay, now before the Third World War really kicks off and then intensifies, the prophecy concerning the mark of the beast, which is the RFID microchip, also known as the NFC chip implant in Europe, must and will come to pass. Okay, the Lord is not a man that he should lie. So the Lord is going to be putting it into the minds of these elites to speed up the process of them introducing the world to the MOTB and subsequently mandating it globally. Okay? It says in February 2022, the Kremlin recognized the Donbass republics as independent states and demanded that Ukraine officially declare itself a neutral country that will never join any Western military bloc. So the U.S. has always been known for staging a lot of proxy wars and coups to expand its hegemony throughout the world. Okay? Also, let us not forget the prophecy concerning America's allies turning against America, Babylon the Great. Okay? And where they will eat her flesh and burn her up with fire, as it is written in Revelation 17. Reading on, it says, in February 2022, the Kremlin recognized the Donbass republics as independent states and demanded that Ukraine officially declare itself a neutral country that will never join any Western military bloc. Kyiv insists the Russian offensive was completely unprovoked. Shalom. I want to give all praises, blessings, glories and honors to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rachakudash. Double honors to my elder apostles and bishop elders of Great Millstone who have taught me this truth, as well as men of like mind. Shalom wa chasad, which means peace and mercy, to the elect of the nation of Israel, whom are so-called Negroes, Latinos, Native American Indians, and Israelite foreigners of the seed on our forefathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, who are scattered here in America, which is Babylon the Great and abroad. To you I say Shalom, Yahweh Shmi, Yahweh Shai, this lesson is edifying, informative, concise. So, this is just another major example of wars, rumors of wars, because the Lord is putting it into the hearts, which is the minds of these different nations, and particularly in this case, America and its allies, which are its allies as of now, to prepare for war against Russia. And this is why the scripture states here in the book of Ecclesiastes, the 3rd chapter, the 8th verse, that a time of love. But before I do read that, let's read the first verse. To everything there is a season, Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verse 1, and a time to every purpose under the heaven. Verse 8, a time to love and a time to hate, a time of war and a time of peace. And we are in a time of prophecy, the time of war, okay? The times of the mark of the beast, which is the RFID microchip, being mandated, okay? And what will follow after that? The third world's woe. And so the war that these nations are preparing for is the third world's woe, which will come after the mark of the beast has been mandated, okay? Because that has to happen first. Revelation chapter 11, verse 14. It reads, the second war is past. So World War II, that's already passed. And behold, the third war comes quickly. So the third war, which is World War III, cometh quickly. And it's the reason why we are in a time of war and in a time of hate, and not in a time of love, nor in a time of peace. Because the third world's war cometh what? Quickly. And it will come quickly after the mark of the beast, which is the RFID microchip, has been mandated globally. Okay? And where will the third world's war be fought? In the valley of Jehoshaphat. According to the book of Joel, the 3rd chapter. And let's start at the 2nd verse. I will also gather all nations and will bring them down into the valley of Jehoshaphat. Right, the valley of Yehoshaphat, which is Jehoshaphat in the Hebrew. Where is that located? In the Middle East, in the Arabian Peninsula. That is where the valley of Jehoshaphat is located. And I will plead with them there for my people. Who's the Lord's people? The nation of Israel. And for my heritage, Israel, whom they have scattered among the nations and part of my land. Right. And this is one of the reasons why these nations have been doing what? Verse 10. Beat your plowshares into swords and your prune hooks into spears. Right. So these nations have been using their economic wealth and using it towards the research and development and enhancements of weapons of mass destruction in preparation for the Third World War, which come quickly, and they will come after the MOTB has been globally mandated. Okay, this is why they've been building all these different nuclear missiles. Russia, for example, had recently enhanced and introduced the world to their newer version Satan II missile. Okay, so that's an example of a nation beating their plowshare into swords and their pruning hooks into spears. Let the weak say I am strong. Like, it's an example of the weak is North Korea. Countries that didn't had nuclear capabilities years ago, but now do. Okay, now they're boasting before the world, saying, look, we're strong too, because now the playing field has been leveled. Now we possess ICBM nuclear missiles or hydrogen bombs. Verse 11, assemble yourselves and come, all ye heathen, come where? In Valley of Jehoshaphat, and gather yourselves together round about. Thither cause thy mighty ones, and who are the mighty ones? The angels of Yahweh Bashem Yahweh shall come down, O Lord Yahweh. Let the heathen be wakened, and come up to the valley of where? Of Jehoshaphat. For there will I sit to judge all the heathen round about. Right, 2 Ezra, the 13th chapter. Okay? And while all that is happening, Esau, Edom's allies, leading up to all that, are going to turn against her. Okay, America's allies, to be specific. Okay, that's what I had meant to say. Because all of America's allies, the majority of them are all Edomites. Okay, the British, the French, okay, the Greeks, the Spaniards, they're all Edomites. And so America's allies, they're going to all turn against America, Babylon the Great, and eat her flesh and burn her up with fire. According to this scripture here in Revelation chapter 17, verse 16, and the 10 horns represents the EU, okay, which is a part of the beast with 7 heads, okay, which is NATO. These shall hate the whore. Who's the whore? America, Babylon the Great, that rise upon the beast, and shall make her desolate by way of what? Intercontinental ballistic missiles, and naked. Refer to Isaiah 13, Revelation 18, Joel the 2nd chapter, Revelation the 9th chapter. So many different chapters, man, scriptures that goes into the destruction of America, Babylon the Great, according to biblical prophecy. And shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh and burn her with fire. So all these things are coming, man, upon America, Babylon the Great, because it says in Isaiah chapter 9, verse 5, for every battle of the warriors with confused noise and garments rolled in blood. But this, which is Third World War, shall be fought with what? Burning a fuel of fire. So that concludes the first article. Now let's go to the second article. Nearly 90% of Americans are unhappy with the nation's direction. Now, I'll read just a portion of this article just to get to the point. A record high share of U.S. citizens believe the nation is heading the wrong way, a Marymount University opinion polls show. Most Americans are hurt by inflation and gas prices, believe the federal government is only making things worse, and are pessimistic, which the word pessimistic means gloomy. So most Americans are gloomy about where things are going, with a whooping 88% saying the U.S. is on the wrong track. New opinion poll indicates the level of concern about the direction the U.S. is heading is the highest since 2013, the year the Marymount University Polling Institute started asking the question. It said as it released the results of the latest survey on Wednesday, just 10% approved of the direction, down from 42% in January 2021. Performance of Joe Biden as president is perceived in an increasingly negative way, with 36% approving of the job he's done and 50% disapproving. So that's pretty much half the entire U.S. Congress is doing even worse, with a whooping 78% disapproval rating. Economic and financial troubles are what the majority of Americans are most concerned about. So most Americans are concerned about the economy and their financial troubles that they're experiencing on a day-to-day basis. It says inflation and gas prices are the highest concerns on the list. Now, again, what is inflation? Because a lot of people still don't know what inflation is. Inflation is just simply the expansion or the general increase in the cost of goods and services due to the expansion of money supply in an economy. That's inflation by definition. Okay? So, as money expands in the economy, that is what causes it to inflate. All right? So, it reads on to say, economic and financial troubles are what the majority of Americans are most concerned about. Inflation and gas prices were the highest concern on the list. They were 33% and 50% respectively. 9% said they were most worried about the state of the economy, and 6% pointed to daily expenses such as bills and groceries. So I'll stop there. And now let's get back to the scriptures. Now, why are most Americans disapproving of Biden's rating? Because now they're seeing that their trust in the shadow of Egypt has led to their confusion, to their shame. This is why the Lord said this in Isaiah, the 30th chapter, the first verse. Woe to the, and you know what? The majority of you that voted for Joe Biddy are you Jakes. It says, woe to the rebellious children, save the Lord Yahweh, that take counsel but not of me. Right, because they take counsel from Esau, Edom's presidents, his government, his governors, his mayors, his local leaders, and even the leaders of our people, which are subject to Esau, Edom, and that caused them to err. And the Lord said that they that are led of them are going to be destroyed. It says that take counsel but not of me, because these leaders are not judging our people according to the scriptures. It says, and that cover with a covering, but not of my spirit. So they cover with the covering of the counsel of Esau Edom. It says, but not of my spirit, right? So they don't cover themselves with the covering of the spirit of Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai. Why? Because they want to keep on living that YOLO lifestyle, you know. And the majority of people right now, they don't even believe that there's a higher power. Reads on to say that they may add sin to sin. What is that? Iniquity. What is sin? Transgression of the law. 1 John chapter 3 verse 4 tells us that. Now the stacking of sin is iniquity. That walk to go down into Egypt, and what's modern day Egypt? America. Revelation chapter 11 verse 8. It says, and have not acts in my mouth to strengthen themselves in the strength of Pharaoh. And who's the modern day Pharaoh? Esau Edom. Beginning with his president. That's Pharaoh. It says, and to trust in the shadow of Egypt, right? Because they trust in the protection of America. They trust in the manners and customs of America, because America reflects the ancient traditions and customs of ancient Egypt. Hence the reason why it is spiritually called Sodom and Egypt. Okay? Therefore shall the strength of Pharaoh, and this is the point, therefore shall the strength of Pharaoh be your shame. Right, and right now people are seeing Pharaoh's shame, because his strength is ultimately being their shame. Okay, therefore shall the strength of Pharaoh be your shame, because Pharaoh, modern day Pharaoh, who is who? Joe Biden, America's president. Okay, be your shame, and the trust in the shadow of Egypt, your confusion. So their trust in this system is their confusion, and it will further lead even more to their detrimental confusion. Okay, because they're going to be destroyed ultimately along with the system. So modern day Pharaoh, the modern day Egyptians are the Edomites, and Pharaoh is the president of America, Babylon the Great, who is who? Joe Biden. So Joe Biden's strength is going to be the shame of those that trust in him, because they'll see, as even as they are seeing, that this man was really not to be trusted. Because look at the state that he's gotten the country in. Okay, so with that, I'll conclude this lesson here. Lord's willing, it was edifying to the elect. Until the next Lord's willing, I say shalom to the elect.